Morning, folks. How are we all doing? Look, I had no idea how to start this one off. Part of me really wanted to do the "it's been an interesting month for our boy" thing again, which would make it 3 months in a row. But then when I was looking at my notes, I just suddenly realized that it actually kind of wasn't an interesting month for our boy. Boogie has become a man very rapidly spiraling out of control as he desperately tries to cling to any form of relevance he had, but he's really just drawing more and more trolls to himself. Lashing out repeatedly at people throughout the month, routinely getting caught in lies, changing his story seemingly over every single tweet or every single stream, so, I don't know, it really hasn't been that great a month. Let's just jump straight into his TikTok, where Boogie released a total of 34 TikToks, and it's a mixed bag. And by mixed bag, I mean at the start of the month, it's more those teenage girls. The videos, however, very quickly descended just more ridiculous and kind of creepy videos as time went on, with Boogie making TikToks about his mental health, making TikToks about people not wanting to sleep with morbidly obese men, about him joking about eating pussy, and of course joking about having a stroke, which does get pushback, so Boogie immediately pulls his newest card: well, I have cancer, so I can joke about it. There's also a TikTok that was so cringe, and I was pretty sure it was bait, where he claims that because he was apparently abused as a child, he can handle basically anything, which is, obviously and provably not true. But then he responded to Sears' posts about it on Twitter, so yeah, I guess it could still be bait. We're all well aware of Boogie's policy that anything he says online is both bait and also serious, depending on how much he gets laughed at for it. He also responds to someone pointing out about him begging, and he claims he did ask for people to buy merch, become channel members, and also donate a few dollars, as that's all they could. So yeah, we're just going to get this out of the way, and I'm going to speedrun this thing. This month in Boogie was generally uninteresting to me, which is probably surprising to people when all they saw was the highlights, because they thought, oh, this is going to be a crazy month. But all there is the highlights that have been talked to death at this point. Boogie routinely goes back to discussing his e-bagging video, because he does realize he made a really foolish gamble to try and get a bit more attention, and the result has more or less been bad for him. With some view counts certainly increasing on his videos, but other videos still struggling. The like to dislike ratio on the videos is generally awful though, and Boogie is desperately trying to rewrite the narrative because he can't really handle any form of actual trolling. His way of talking about the begging video to try and contextualize it changes basically daily. It can change 3 times in a day depending on when he tweets, who he's tweeting to, who he's talking about. It goes from, oh, I never begged, to, well, I begged but everyone does it, to, well, I begged but, I realised not many people beg, however I have to do it for X, Y, and Z reason. He's all over the place with the reasoning for it. His explanation changes constantly, and it's not actually really that fun to keep up with. Everyone just knows by now that he's lying constantly about it, and that's all you really need to know. I think it's going to be a recurring thing over the next few months, and if I'm being honest with everyone, probably the next few years, it's going to be the new Tesla thing. I said that at the time, it's going to be the new Tesla thing, and 100% it's looking like that right now. He's just trying to cope about ruining his reputation even more. Weirdly, on livestream, he compared himself to the professor from Tellurian Community College, where the professor suddenly made a video saying he had lost his job in real life and was asking his audience to help him a wee bit. Boogie, in his warped idea of reality, thinks that a man suddenly and unexpectedly losing their job in real life is the same as Boogie spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on basically hookers and then needing people to give him money so he can buy hookers again. It's just Boogie's narcissism, where he honestly compares himself to the professor losing his job as being like, oh, well, because he did it, I'm allowed to do it now. How can you dare say this is in any way different when it so blatantly is a different situation? I already listed a bunch of people last month who have never seen us for monetary donations, but this month I actually found one. A channel I actually really like called Team APS. Very successful Yu-Gi-Oh channel. They're making top quality content. I think they're the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh channel on YouTube. However, one of their series is one where they buy old rare boxes of boosters, open them up, and then duel with them. Now, at the end of the most recent video, they explain that the next box they're going to get is very expensive, so they'd like people to try and help them out if possible, help them towards the cost off, and they'd really appreciate it. And that's it. It's a 30-minute video, and they mentioned it for about the last 30 seconds or so, explaining why they're asking for some extra super thanks, what the money was going to be used for, and they even saved it until the end, giving you 30 minutes of content and good entertainment first, and this being their 8th or 9th episode in the series. This is the only time I've ever seen them do anything like this as well. This is how you ask for assistance if you need it. They've already given you the content. They save it for the last 30 seconds, so most people won't even have seen this. It's for the die-hard superfans. It's not a dedicated video. It's not a dedicated post about it or anything like that. This is how you do it. Boogie instead decided to sit down for 6 minutes straight to try and whine about how poor his life is and ask you to give him money. That's why they're different, Boogie. One of the biggest times this came to a head, though, was when a fan on Reddit asked if he was actually broke or if he was looking for attention. The subreddit generally took Boogie apart, claiming it was probably both, and that if he was broke, it was his fault, then he probably is still being responsible with money right now. Boogie, who generally avoids Reddit, decided to post a lengthy response to clear things up. He covers all the standard excuses, such as his mental health breakdown on Twitch, which meant he had to take a break from YouTube and streaming. Obviously, we know he didn't actually really take a break or anything like that, but that's still what he claims. He says he had to live on his savings, though, because of this, which doesn't make any sense, because if you look at his social blade, he was still getting 2 to 3 million views per month for quite a bit until it dropped down to be about 2 million per month. Boogie claimed recently that that was his target that he could live comfortably on. So why was it different back then? Boogie makes it sound like he had zero money coming in, and that's why he quickly burnt through his savings. But that's blatantly not true. He still would have been earning a decent amount from 2 to 3 million views per month, if that's what he can live off right now. He also takes a random shot at Charlie and Muda, which is just another recurring theme this month that I'll cover a wee bit later on. Then goes on to say that the Francis videos have always been demonetized, which is also a new recurring claim during the month, changing it from they've been demonetized for the last 5 years, to 6 years, to 9 years, to always. Please note, many of his Francis videos, including the most famous ones, are still monetized and running ads. I have personally checked that. I'm showing screenshots right now. He talks about his therapy was so expensive during the time to fix his mental health, which, I don't know, once again makes it so confusing why he's acting like this round of therapy is the first time he's ever done it, when he's only been doing it for about 3 months or so, but it's acting like it's the most shocking and weird thing in the world to him. It also makes it weirder that if it was so expensive, why didn't he include that in his financial breakdown during October? He goes on to blame McJuggernuggets pretty much entirely for it now, but of course still doesn't name him, pointing out repeatedly that Jesse convinced him to invest, but mysteriously now has left out the part where Jesse apparently promised to cover all the losses. He also claims that when he made the I am rich video, the crypto was only up, quote unquote, a little bit, despite in the video him showing stats that would suggest that it had nearly 5x'd. He claims he barely spends any money on collectibles, that they're usually super cheap if he gets them, or if they're gifts or their store credits. He covers this at other times as well, despite, other videos in the past, him gloating about how expensive the items are in his collection, but apparently now the collection's worth about $5,000. He then proceeded to get absolutely decimated in the responses, people calling him out for attacking Charlie Muda randomly, for him being lazy, for him making excuses, for him lying, goes on. He, of course, like a responsible man who, with perfect mental health now due to his therapy, deleted the entire topic on Reddit, but of course it had already been archived. I don't really feel the need to go into like every single time he changes story, because it is every day. It is every day. It's every tweet. It's every stream. It's not interesting. It's not funny. He's just a liar. If he's talking to a fan, well, I'm struggling, but I would really appreciate the support. But if he's talking to a troll, he's suddenly doing pretty well financially, and he's never asked for a single penny from anyone. To be blunt, it made his live streams this month generally so boring that all of them kind of just blurred together for me, because he just kept repeating the point over and over and over again. And I guess I should probably mention this because it is somehow related. Do you know what section doesn't exist in this month's catch-up? I'm sure if you look at the chapters, you'll probably tell. For the man who is struggling to get by, so much so they had begged for like a single dollar only a month ago. His Whatnot streams. Those auctions he does where he routinely made over $1,000 in like an hour and a bit long auctions? Yeah, he didn't do a single one this month. It's almost like he didn't really need the money or something like that, guys. His general health and fitness has been bizarre this month, and I've already covered the big story in a separate video that I'll link below. It's where Boogie suddenly announced that he had a rare form of blood cancer, blaming his testosterone for it, despite, it also being caused by obesity-related issues, and then pretty much just threatened to sue and strike anyone who doesn't believe him and take down their channels, all that kind of malarkey. Later on, though, in a stream, after a lot of people came out and said that they didn't believe him, and some even challenged him to try and sue them, he confirmed that he was only going to sue people as big as Charlie and Keemstar if they didn't believe him. But not only that, he had also only sued them if they claimed that it was fake, and they had direct evidence of it being fake, which clearly no one did, because how can you have like clear evidence that it's fake? That doesn't actually make any sense, and I don't think anyone's ever come forward and said, this is fake, I have clear evidence. That doesn't make any sense. It feels like he was trying to intimidate people, which is something Boogie is very well known to do, and then when enough people just said like, nah, we don't believe you, I guess we don't believe you, take down our channels if you want, try that, but yeah, we don't believe you, and he was just like, oh, okay, never mind, and quickly shit himself and just backed down on it. At the beginning of the month, he suddenly claimed that his weight was down to about 380 pounds, so he made a video about it. Weirdly bringing back the fat face clickbait thing again, which I guess did work because he did get a decent number of views for it, but I don't know, during the video he says it's the lightest he's been in 2022, and say it with me guys, His back pain is finally nearly totally gone. For the 8th time this year alone. During the video, he also hints at shady bad things in his real life that he isn't ready to talk about, which could honestly be like any number of things at this point, because he just suddenly randomly seems to pull shit out of his ass from his cancer to suddenly bringing up that he had a brand new unknown girlfriend who'd been dating for 5 months in secret. Oh yeah, and another long-term girlfriend he also had this year that no one knew about, because as we all know, Boogie's the master of keeping things close to his chest. Just like the cancer announcement that he made a video about and tweeted about within hours of finding out the diagnosis. He repeatedly brings up these two relationships throughout the month. I don't really think I need to tell you guys that I don't believe it, especially because during his two travel videos, which were like June and October, he had a different girl both times. Both were incredibly young, very clearly sugar babies if we're being honest with ourselves, and it doesn't even include a different girl he claimed at the start of the year was a long-term relationship. That super hot young girl he claimed to have met playing Magic the Gathering, the one he bought Leo for, even though he still owns Leo. Yeah, the whole thing is just make-believe in my opinion, and it's very likely just due to it being about 5 years since him and Des separated, because he repeatedly talks about getting an ex back. He writes a bizarre story that he narrated on his YouTube account, which involved a woman marrying a guy that no one agreed with her marrying. Her family weren't happy with the marriage. The woman shares Boogie's sister's name, which is incredibly creepy. The man is described as driving an electric car, so basically a Tesla, and she keeps talking about his teeth, so basically Boogie. It's a bizarre, weird form of projection, as he writes something that is very clearly about his ex-wife, a sexless marriage that seemingly neither party was that excited for, how her family didn't like him, how she had to fit into his life entirely, and how she lost her friends and had to join his friend circle without having any friends of her own, and then she's brutally killed at the end and eaten by the man. It's fascinating. Hell, he even makes 2 videos this month as well called A Dating Guide for Fat Men, using a picture of an e-girl as a thumbnail without her permission, and also a video about how to get your ex back. The videos are an experience. My favourite bit in the dating guide one is where he claims that most dating guides are made by normal looking people, for normal looking people, as he shows a bunch of thumbnails of generally above average looking people. I don't know if he considers himself in their league, but he most certainly isn't. The video in general, though, is the exact same stuff you've seen before. Boogie claiming how he routinely dates way out of his league, and it's definitely not because of his money, guys. Definitely not. Guys, how dare you even think that? Boogie is a pussy slayer, and it's not because of his money, guys, okay? All those 19-year-old girls, they line up around the block for Boogie cock. Alright, guys? The dating guide is nothing new, though, as well. Nothing interesting, nothing funny. It's nothing. It doesn't come across very well from Boogie, who routinely lies about relationships and actually talks about, paying over $100,000 just to have, girls sleep with him and give him attention for 2 years. It just, I don't know, it's the same thing as last time. This would sound a lot better if it wasn't coming from Boogie. The guide to breakups is just as embarrassing, as Boogie gives the initial advice of to distance yourself from the girl. As a man who claims that him and Des kept talking frequently afterwards, and also, when he was phoning her on live stream to ask him if she cucked him or not. Yeah, that guy, that's the guy giving you advice on distancing yourself from your ex. He also says to take time to yourself after the breakup, to go out and have fun by yourself, to, date yourself in his words. To take time and focus on yourself before going into any other relationships. As the guy who spent $100,000 paying sugar babies to go to museums with him for 2 years after the divorce. The month in general has just been awkward for Boogie, especially in regards to relationships, with him suddenly at the end starting to talk about his ex-wife more, and starting to say that whilst the relationship was difficult for her, it was tremendously difficult for him, kind of implying that she was the issue in the relationship, which is obviously pure copium. But now he's saying he can't say anything negative about her because he's under NDA. Oh, but making sure to say that she isn't under an NDA, so if he had done anything bad, she would definitely say it. But he can't say anything bad stuff she did because he's under NDA. It's pure copium, and it's ridiculous. And in my opinion, it's 5 years, he's upset, he's alone, he's lonely, and he's upset with Des now. And as I already said, his audience is slowly getting more and more incel-y. If you just look at the responses they receive when they're sitting there complaining about women constantly, he is kind of going a wee bit incel, guys. This all isn't helped though on the 14th when on his livestream, he accidentally shows off his search history once again and people call him out for it. Boogie of course gets indignant about this, claiming people are showing off search history from over 4 years ago, trying to use it against him, as people point out that he was on Seeking Arrangements again, along with Skip the Games where he was searching the Fayetteville area. The problem with this though, is that Boogie was specifically searching a single post on
eccie.net, eccie.net. I've never even heard of it before. It's a site that very clearly is worried about law enforcement because it does seem to be actual prostitution. The thread that Boogie was directly linking to, though, was from the end of December 2021, meaning that it's less than a year old, despite Boogie trying to claim that he hasn't sugared since the end of 2019, and claiming that all those search results are from over 4 years ago. So this is pretty much just direct proof that Boogie is still looking at sugaring as early as 1 year ago. The thread in particular that it links to is kind of messed up, honestly, though, because there are posters saying that the girl in particular looks so young that they'd want to ID her before doing anything. And that's a thread that Boogie apparently frequented enough that it was the top one in his search bar, or he bookmarked it. Meaning that Boogie was looking at this one of a girl apparently so young, other people on this weird prostitution website were saying they'd want to ID her before doing anything with her. Just let that sink in. On YouTube in general, he uploaded 17 videos in total this month. A massive improvement from his last month. Like, don't get me wrong, he actually does seem to be making a bit of an effort. There is a fair amount of variety in them as well, but the majority, of course, is still personal videos where he talks about himself or his relationships. Despite the effort that he clearly put into trying to make more videos, his claim of doing a big Francis Halloween special that he had planned and scripted and it was going to be amazing, that didn't happen. Oh, but what about, the Francis Thanksgiving special that he had planned and written? Nope, didn't happen. Okay. For Halloween, we got him pretty much just showing us his decorations in the front yard, and for Thanksgiving, he just did a compilation of previous Francis skits. The only other Francis video we got was one about Elon Musk buying Twitter, because, of course, it's Boogie once again celebrating the downfall of someone he doesn't like. He likes seeing other people fail, repeatedly mentions Tesla, I wonder why, and also just randomly coping because he is addicted to Twitter. We got one fat news segment this month, mercifully. But honestly, the video's fine, actually. It's probably the best of his fat news videos as he talks about people's knee-jerk reaction. Like, hypocritically, of course, but, still. The problem is, it's just not really funny, and it's his worst performing video of the month, so I don't really think this is going to last too much longer. It's just one where he put very little effort into it, so much so that he accidentally copied himself twice in the thumbnail and still didn't fix it 3 weeks later on when I copied this. The fat news thing is trying to be both serious and funny at the same time, I've mentioned before, and because of that, it just kind of falls flat. I actually think if he'd done like a rambling response video like he does for his personal stuff, talking about this, it probably actually would have come across better and probably would have performed better too. Outside of his personal videos, he also talks about drag queens and drag shows, and it has a weird start, because it starts with him describing himself as mostly straight, which I don't know if that's a thing, and he also says he's found Christianity again in the last few years. He then goes into his belief system of not judging people, and for anyone who follows Boogie for any amount of time, you realise that that's just not true. He calls people evil if they don't believe his excuse about not going to Magic 30. He calls anyone who disagrees with him a QAnon MAGA Republican who hates gay people. All Boogie does is judge people. That is entirely his thing, so it is just ludicrous as is still the public image he's trying to portray himself, especially for people who saw the Sunny V2 thing that I'm going to mention here soon. The dude is all about judging people and casting judgments onto them. I generally don't care about the video in general, though, because it's an opinion he's given numerous times before. It's nothing shocking. People ask me to do a direct response to it. I don't know why. It's something he's talked about before, and it's a very softball video, so there's nothing really for me to talk about. The weirdest bit, though, is him comparing himself in a positive light to the Club Q shooter. If you don't know, the Club Q shooter is some fucking lunatic. He went in and shot up a gay bar earlier on in the month. It was a tragedy. I don't know. It's just kind of weird when Boogie says something like this then.
But unfortunately, not everybody has the live and let live philosophy that I've adopted. A lot of people want to tell other people how to live. A lot of people want to keep other people from living their lives. And we've seen a lot of it in the last few years, and I'm really afraid we're going to see more.
I don't know, it's a bizarre statement to me to try and make yourself look better by saying like, well, not everyone's nice like me though. Some people are mass shooters, which I don't know why he has to make everything about him. It always takes away from what he's talking about. Like I said, though, the video is kind of meh in general. It's a lot of Boogie's like standard talking points, but it just comes across so bad when Boogie's trying to act holier than thou, especially when he's one of the most reactive people I've ever seen, who threatens people constantly, he insults people constantly, he judges people constantly, he mocks people constantly, doing his soft-speaking, voice where he does lots of long pauses and sighs a lot. Doesn't really change who Boogie is, especially when he's obviously trying to win favour with a video like this. And it is just nuts to see him claim that people judge him specifically because he tells people not to judge.
This is a truly fictitious version of Boogie he's made up in his head, and it really shows his narcissistic tendencies, because he seems to believe this about himself, that people don't like him just because he's so good and nice. It is bizarre. It also doesn't help that as a video about drag shows, he barely even mentions drag shows during the runtime, and it mainly is just him talking about how nice he is, and how he doesn't judge people, and is just the best person ever. It's a really bad look for Boogie, and the dislike to like ratio really does back that up. We also got some gaming content this month, with 2 gaming videos in one day. The first being the Game Awards 2022 is kind of a joke. And it's just really funny to see people on his Twitter saying that they just want him to be positive, and his response to them is to, lol, it is actually positive, I was just clickbaiting to pretend that it was negative. Like, the dude just doesn't learn at all that he both claims he's, like, making every video for the nice people, he doesn't care about the negative people, but then when he makes videos, he's clearly, like, trying to target them towards negative people, so neither side is really happy. During the video, he immediately talks about how he won a Game Award back in 2016. Like, cool. It's not actually relevant in any way, but I'm glad that you're reminding people that you used to be popular half a decade ago. And for being a hardcore gamer, it is just weird to see him talking about a bunch of games that he says, well, I've never actually played that game, or I've never even heard that game, and just skips a bunch of the categories. I don't know, it's just pure clickbait, because there really isn't any criticism of the Game Awards, or, well, anything. He just clicks through the categories and goes, well, I've only played that one game, so I guess that should win whatever category it is. And that's the entire video. Boogie just keeps releasing these super low effort, poorly thought out videos that seemingly have no knowledge behind them, and then shocked no one really cares about his video game content anymore. It's a sharp contrast to Boogie of even 3 years ago, when on his Big Stack podcast he came across as enthusiastic, clearly loved the medium, and even back then his views were starting to slip. Now he's too scared to pull the trigger and go full negative, but he's not involved enough where he can be positive and knowledgeable, so he's in this weird middle ground. The next upload that day was for the legendarily bad Magic 30th Anniversary Edition boosters. He'd been asked repeatedly by people to make a video on this or talk about it in some way, and he was always like, nah, other people already talked about it, so it's fine, which is kind of a bad attitude to have for a professional YouTuber. Hell, even at one point, I was tempted to message him to tell him he should talk about it, and when he finally did, I was actually intending on commenting on the video and saying, I'm glad you talked about this. But then I watched the video, and it's not a joke or anything when I say that I was actually disappointed in this video, which is probably weird for people to hear, because they know I don't generally like Boogie's videos. As followers likely know, I've gotten pretty heavily back into Magic the Gathering recently, after a break for, like, I don't know, half a decade, maybe more, so I was kind of hopeful that Boogie would start doing a bit more coverage on it. I fully admit I'm probably one of the worst people to talk about Boogie's content, as someone who is very public in saying I generally don't enjoy his content, and also someone who knows more than enough about his lies and all, so I don't know, it's just hard when you watch this, and he very quickly starts talking about his history of Magic, making sure to point out how he's met several girlfriends through the game, and immediately I had to cringe when the story pops up where he said he met like a super hot girl and started dating her through Magic the Gathering earlier this year, or when he suddenly starts talking about how he owns a gaming store. Then I'm reminded of like the 300 different stories where he owned it, co-owned it, invested in it, helped set up a corner in it, just bought lots of merchandise from them. You know, it's just, I hear that stuff and I'm like, why does this need to be in the video? Just talk about the fucking boosters. The video, however, is a stark contrast to his coverage of the Game Awards, because he does actually come across as knowledgeable to material in general. However, he's trying to make it seem worse than it often is. Like, I know Boogie has a very bad relationship with Wizards of the Coast because of the whole banning him from an event thing, so I do think a lot of this is just his bitterness coming through, which comes across as unnecessary, especially when he's telling people that, like, they shouldn't ever buy Magic the Gathering products again, you should just print off your own versions, especially when we suspect that he's still buying it himself. Out of the 17 videos he released, 10 of them, well, they aren't entirely about him. Most of them talk about him and his issues and his life a fair amount, but I'm trying to be generous here, so I'm saying those 10 are fairly unique videos, but that still means 7 are entirely about him, which is quite a percentage. I've already discussed a £380 video, so the next major one didn't end up actually being that major one. Boogie opened an Onlyfans. I really have no interest talking about this. I've already told people that previously, especially when people were like, oh, are you going to make a response to it? Nah, I knew this was going to be a nothing burger, and I was proven entirely right. It's for attention. Repeatedly throughout the month, he complains that big creators didn't talk about it enough and no one cared, which is what I called. He went hard at it for a few days. He talked about it over and over again, made all these tweets about it, posted up silly pictures of himself. No one cared, and he very quickly just stopped talking about it. I don't remember the last time he's actively talked about it during this month. The biggest issue with it, once again, is all of his lies and his inconsistencies, which, you know, kept changing repeatedly throughout the couple of weeks that he was talking about it. It one day was like a funny, silly joke, guys, so it's not serious. But he also expected people to pay to be included in the joke, where apparently he didn't really post anything interesting or special. Half the stuff was stuff he'd already posted elsewhere. And also, he weirdly gave people the option to buy for 6 months straight, which doesn't imply it's a silly, quick little joke to get people's attention if he wants you to pay for 6 months in advance. The day afterwards, he would say, well, actually, I'm planning on doing adult content on it, and I have it scheduled to film with a girl tonight. Then the next day, no, I was just a joke, guys, I'm never doing adult content. Then the day after, it's like, oh, actually, I want to collaborate with this Onlyfans girl, and I'm going to make adult content about it. The day after that, no, guys, it's just a joke, I'm never going to make adult content on it. The day after that, oh, if I make enough money, I'm going to make adult... It's just that over and over and over again. It kind of ended up with him claiming that because of his cancer, he set up the OnlyFans because he was actually worried about his finance. But I'm sure that will change 200,000 more times. I'm glad the storyline died super quick because it was somehow way more boring than even his cancer story and the e-begging story put together. We also get another video about the future of him on YouTube, and it's just once again him going, well guys, I'm nearly at the end of my career, so I'm just going to go crazy and go wild and have lots of fun. Which is the same thing he claims constantly, like just expect him to make another video like this in 2 months' time. He also claims that people who don't like his life advice don't watch the life advice. He just claims that anyone who says that he gives bad advice or doesn't like his opinion stuff don't watch the video. He does it repeatedly, claiming that anyone who actually sits down and listens to him always agrees with him and thinks he's an amazing, great person, and everyone who doesn't like him just doesn't watch his content. It's a standard cope he did with his e-begging video, claiming that people who thought he was begging simply hadn't watched the video, despite people being able to accurately timestamp and quote to him exactly what he was saying when he was begging. He then randomly says that he doesn't care if he upset 10,000 people by begging if even one person was okay with it. And that is a bizarre claim from a guy who claims that he cares too much about how people feel, so much so that he's ruined his life being too nice to people and loving people too much and being too kind to people and helping people too much. But here he is saying that he doesn't care if he upsets 10,000 people if one person's okay with it. It is such a bizarre claim. It falls into the category of this would sound so much better if it came from anyone but Boogie, who he thinks he's like the patron saint of YouTube, who is getting up here once again to nail himself on the cross for everyone. Which then, of course, leads him to talking about, and in his own words, how ridiculously well he is handling this. He thinks he's doing great right now on YouTube, how people love his personal stories, how he's doing amazing in general, and he's doing so well with his promises to improve and get better because he's streaming and making more videos, which is true. But there are a lot of promises he didn't do, like his promise of weekly member-only streams for his YouTube members, which, by the way, he stopped streaming on YouTube entirely, so even after begging for YouTube memberships, he hasn't given them anything in response to that. He promised big effort videos and skits for Francis fans, but then he walked that back, even in a later video claiming that he doesn't really like doing Francis as much anymore because of how mentally well he is. He doesn't feel like doing Francis anymore. He also released a video this month called It's Okay to Not Be Okay, where he came across as very whiny and very defeatist, that he'll never be thin, that he's too broken of a person to actually be better, which is, in sharp contrast to his other videos where he talks about his improvement constantly. The video, however, just comes across as a pity party for himself, talking about all the negative things he's gone through, how he's just too nice a person, people take advantage of him, that it really just clashes with the whole it's okay to not be okay thing, because he's pretty much just whining and ranting about pretty much everything, and then just telling people that if he's in a bad mood, they just have to deal with it because it's okay that he's not okay, which isn't really that's not the meaning of the phrase "it's okay to not be okay." You have to still want to improve. He's just like, oh well, no, it's okay. Well, if I'm a dickhead today, that's okay because I'm just being a dickhead today, guys, and you just have to deal with it. There's a lot of sides, a lot of long pauses, and of course, he gives terrible advice like this.
I think the most important thing I've learned through the last few months, and it's a very Buddhist way of thinking, I think, but number one, you're not your feelings. You're not your feelings and you're not your thoughts. You are an observer of those feelings. You're an observer of those thoughts. They're generated somewhere in your mind, your body, but your soul is just there to observe that shit. And sometimes we push it down. We don't let our body or our hearts or our minds feel what they need to feel. And that made me really fat. But recently I've been letting myself feel and acknowledging it. And I'm not assigning positive feelings or negative feelings to anything. I hurt today and that's okay. I'm sad today and that's okay. I'm heartbroken. I'm angry and that's okay.
It's a really bizarre, ridiculous claim that you aren't in control of your emotions and are just an observer, because it's just blatantly not true. You're an adult. This just comes across as yet another shield for any negative behavior he has, and that it's just not his fault, guys. I'm not in control of my emotions. It's fine for me to act like this. He also mentions once again that his weight is still 380 pounds, suggesting that despite his sudden health improvement at the start of the month, despite him claiming that he's secretly going to the gym frequently and how he's learned to control his eating, he still hasn't lost any more weight from his original claim at the start of the month. The worst bit for me in the entire video, of course, is when Boogie talks about how people make careers dunking on him, and he just doesn't care. Well, firstly, I don't think anyone actually makes a career dunking on Boogie, because there's like no big anti-Boogie channels, and I don't think really that many channels are actually monetized to talk about Boogie. And of course, this is right before SunnyV2, a creator with just under 3 million subscribers, decided to release a video on Boogie that led to a massive, monumental breakdown that lasted pretty much the entire rest of the month. SunnyV2 is a creator who made a few videos a couple of years ago on Boogie, and since then hasn't really covered him, and instead covers a huge number of variety of topics like drama, stories of the rise and fall of celebrities, stores, companies, unusual takes, unusual people, all that kind of stuff, and he's been very successful doing it. The Sunny video actually was kind of a softball video, and some people didn't think it actually did justice to how bad Boogie had been. However, it's more in line with Sunny's normal content nowadays. A lot softer, a lot more analytical, and a lot more factual, and there's less insults. Even despite this though, Boogie came out hard against it, calling it trash, saying he doesn't think anyone should watch it. Well, unless you want to watch it, and then you should watch it. It's weird. He also immediately fell back on one of his other manipulation tactics he's done with lots of other big YouTubers, claiming that, well, I was a fan of them until they attacked me, which is the same thing he did to like H3H3, Charlie Muda, all those guys. He then goes for like a really bizarre take in a now deleted tweet, claiming that the trolls for some reason ruin holidays a lot for him, with Frank Castle apparently coming on his wedding anniversary, 3 years after he separated from his wife, so I don't know why he considers that a holiday, and also Lucy Fox apparently dropping dirt on him on his birthday in 2018. Now he's trying to claim that Sunny was ruining Thanksgiving for him, but then deleted the tweet after enough pushback, but of course he kept saying in other tweets too. The deleted tweet, however, also was connected to a video that he had posted in response to Sunny, which he very quickly deleted online, and I'll play it here for you now, guys.
Just woke up to a big video being dropped from a YouTuber saying I deserve to be broke and lamenting all of the bad financial decisions I made over the last years. I'm not going to talk too terribly much about it here. Go watch it if you want to, but yes, you make a lot of bad financial decisions when you plan to kill yourself. I've talked about this publicly. I'll talk about it here one more time. My plan was to spend every dime I had and then blow my fucking brains out. The reason I got involved with crypto was because I thought to myself, well, if I become a millionaire, maybe I'll stick it out. I didn't, but I'm choosing to stick it out anyway. I don't know if he included that in the video, but I sure hope he did. Love you, Sonny. Mwah.
The video was classic Boogie, it was immediately archived and shared around, and of course it's just classic Boogie. It's immediately passive-aggressive, and he immediately suicide baits. It's just a standard thing, she's just trying to throw it in Sunny's face that he was suicidal, so he'd hopefully try and get the video taken down or something like that, but it was such a bad look for it, he immediately tried to pull it from everywhere. He tried demeaning the video to people so people wouldn't want to watch it, he tried suicide baiting, he tried comparing it randomly to Frank Castle and Lucy Fox. So what next? Well, he brought up a few negative comments that he received and went on to blame SunnyV2 for this, acting like he's never had bad comments before this video. He then went on to blame drama channels and commentary channels to say that they pretty much cultivate audiences like this, despite basically being a drama channel himself most of the time. The take was so bad, even Tipster, someone who would generally consider himself a fan of Boogie and someone who likes Boogie, actually called him out for it. I don't know, to me it's just kind of weird. As someone who makes videos that are critical of Boogie, I've received plenty of negative comments from his fanbase. Hell, even as I was typing up the script, I had one of Boogie's fans actually in my comment section threatening to dox me and then weirdly ranting about people with bad teeth, which I think is bizarre coming from a Boogie fan firstly, but I don't know, it's funny. I told the guy I was going to include the screenshot and he immediately edited it to try and hide it and then deleted one of his other comments, but obviously by that point I already screenshot it. It's just a standard thing you get from Boogie fans. If you watch the chat in his stream at the sidebar, you will see just the weirdest incel takes on women or even people wishing for SunnyV2 to die. And how does he cultivate an audience like this? Well, for example, this. Someone comes out and tells him to stop talking about offing himself because it comes across as manipulative. So what does Boogie do? He says no, and then goes into a multiple Twitter thread rant about being suicidal, which then just proves the person's point, even going far as say he wants people to be proud of himself for not doing it. So, to someone saying, you shouldn't do this because it's manipulative, Boogie's like, no, and then goes doubly hard on it, directly trying to manipulate that person and other people viewing the conversation. That's where his bad audience comes from. Not because Sonny V2 made a video about him. He went on to react to the Sonny V2 video on his livestream, and honestly it's not overly interesting in a lot of ways. He claims Sonny's lying a lot, he tries justifying his behaviour, he justifies that everyone asks for money, which is blatantly not true. My favourite bit though is like right at the start of it when he basically immediately sought a video to complain about Sonny apparently quote unquote lying about him buying a Tesla, you know, despite Sonny never saying that Boogie bought a Tesla, and instead was showing Boogie's tweet saying that he had bought a Tesla. So Boogie is saying that Sonny is lying about him buying a Tesla by showing Boogie's own words. It's amazing that he doesn't realise how stupid that looks. The stream in general is just a lot of coping. Like, for example, when he complains about Sam and Talkie when Sonny V2 says he should have just ignored it, he says he couldn't ignore it because apparently daily they would spend hundreds of hours making hundreds of threads about him on every other major subreddit on Reddit, linking back to Sam and Talkie, which ruined his reputation. This is blatantly untrue, and he's just rewriting history again because the account is gone, so he thinks he can just get away with this. Apart from the stream, we also get a video he made in regards to it, which is just like his public face response, the thing he tries to do to try and act like really nice and kind. You know, it's not what he does on Twitch where he's like more aggressive or his like suicide baiting on Twitter. This is where he's trying to be like very kind and humble, and it's pretty much the same thing he did with Mr. Snowflake. Mr. Tom claimed that he was humbled by it, he realizes his issues, he'll work on them, he won't share personal stuff. It's the same old nonsense. It's very unimpressive. It's the same thing he does every single time. Don't expect there to be any change from Boogie. The last video to talk about is one I already mentioned in my separate video. It's one he released immediately after his cancer video where he talks about being chronically ill. It's a total clickbait video. The clickbait clearly didn't work though because the view count was terrible. But it's a nothing video. It's just him talking about being sick as a child. However, guys, of course after the Sonny V2 video drops and people start shitting on him again all across the internet, suddenly he announces he has COVID. Claiming he got it a full 2 weeks ago on the 11th of November, which, you know, is an incredibly long time, especially when he claims it barely affected him. Most people, like, test negative after, like, what, 6-7 days nowadays? Also hilariously, he said he got it at Friday Night Magic. You know, despite saying he doesn't go to Friday Night Magic anymore because of his social anxiety. But even worse, the 11th of November was the pre-release day for the Brothers War, which was the brand new set in Magic the Gathering. The one he claimed he didn't buy any of. So it looks like he accidentally outed himself as lying there once again. During November, he also livestreamed 4 times. Like, apart from the Sonny V2 reaction stream, I couldn't really tell you the streams apart. So let's just speedrun the basics here. He begs constantly, he laughs at his own jokes constantly, we got the same 2 songs karaoke in every stream, he's constantly making quote-unquote jokes about how people should donate to him. He constantly claims he'll only say things if people donate to him, he asks his audience permission to say things before immediately saying them. It just became a blur to me now. Like, if his lawyer told him to stop live streaming to not ruin his chances in court, I actually could kind of believe it now after watching enough of these streams, because the streams are just him going over the same points over and over again, constantly changing the story. So if he did this for the Frank Castle situation, he actually might have fucked himself. He constantly references the Tesla thing again, still makes joke about wanting people to donate to him, and then people do donate to him, which is why it's clear to me that it's done on purpose. People don't donate to him unless he's unsubtly reminding them through a joke about donating. So he's clearly doing it on purpose. It's clearly a manipulation tactic now. During his stream on the 14th, he reads extracts from his autobiography he's writing. It's basically written like a 5-year-old would write it, and it really goes to show that Boogie has had like a probably very uninteresting life, because everything he shows in the book is a story he's told us about 50 times online already. So I'm just suspecting that those few stories are either lies that he has really hammered into his head so he knows them off by heart so he won't try and make new ones, or he just hasn't really had much happen to him, because that's all we hear about. We also get more talk from Boogie about how he is so confident around women, and that's why women are so obsessed with him, how he gets girls all the time out of his league, all the standard relationship bullshit. It's really weird though when he says he doesn't like sexist jokes, which is about 30 seconds after he says Amaranth has nice boobies when someone comes in to say that they joined his stream from hers. Because of course Boogie's incel audience is sitting there watching hot tub streamers whilst waiting for him to fucking come live. Because he constantly talks about relationships, we once again hear about his 2 imaginary girlfriends, and now he says he's only going for girls in their late 20s, which firstly isn't that much of an improvement for a near 50-year-old man, and secondly it's proven wrong because one of the searches earlier in the month showed that his search started at 18, weirdly going up to 39, but I think we all know what end of the range he's actually looking at. He also claims now that he's chatting with a new girlfriend already. It's just all coping, it's him being a giga chat, it's so fucking cringe. He also does a personality test in live stream where he clearly lies about his answers, but to be fair, that's to be expected from him. He then claims he is basically the same personality type as Michael from the US Office. He then sits and watches a scene of everyone crying about Michael leaving and saying he's going to cry. An amazing narcissistic display. The dude says, I am like Michael from The Office, and then shows a clip of everyone talking about how much they love Michael from The Office and how sad they'd be if he went, and he sits there just smiling and like a tear rolling down his cheek as he watches, because he's just inserting himself into that scene as that being him. It's so bizarre. It is genuinely bro, how do you not realize how bad this looks? I will give him a tiny amount of credit though. He actually did a live stream where he played a video game for once. It was Marvel Snap, so there's not high class art or anything like that. He did it once, constantly throughout the entire stream was asking, so, do you guys like this? Do you guys actually want to see more of this? We can stop if you don't want to see more of it, we can just stop. And then he never played another video game for the next 4 or 5 streams. So I don't know, I guess that was an experiment and it didn't do well enough, so he's just done now. I don't know, his live streams just are bad. They're just bad. That's all I can really say. It's like watching your creepy sex pest uncle trying to do a live stream. About a third of the content is him being creepy and talking about sex as a 50-year-old, 400-pound man, where he's talking about how he's planning on doing more travel content just so he can make booty calls. About a third of the content is him ranting about the glory days and how no one likes him, and about a third of it is just him telling the same jokes over and over and over again. His Twitter has been uneventful too this month, mainly because it has been solely dedicated to whining about people or coping about the 3 big events that I've already mentioned. Outside of those big events, it's pretty much just the usual stuff. He's just using it as soapbox, being parasocial, occasionally ranting about politics, claiming everyone online is hated and everyone's mean and the biggest cope ever. It's really the month where I see it far less examples, because so much of it was based on Onlyfans, his begging, or Sunny V2, or also kind of whining about his imaginary girlfriends with his incel takes. However, he also once again tried to start shit with Charlie and Muda, especially this month where he claimed that Charlie, out of nowhere, apparently was bullying him for being autistic, which is blatantly not true, and for some reason he just ran with it and repeatedly kept saying it over and over again. But then with Muda, he randomly freaked out because Muda was reacting to the Sunny V2 video, which is something that he also did himself, but he pretty much comes across like a jealous schoolgirl, repeatedly complaining, it's like, well, Muda makes lots of money, so he shouldn't talk about me. Of course, then he nuked all of this very quickly, but it was obviously archived. The last thing that I want to talk about is fairly interesting. However, you have to bear with me a wee bit because I don't have full information on it at the moment, but we'll see what we can go with, okay? So, suddenly on his live stream, he talked about how he had spent nearly 4 hours on the phone one night with an anti-Boogie channel, resulting in them taking down their channel and apologising to him.
So I have a story to tell you guys. I'm not going to out this particular creator. But there's this creator who I had a 4-hour-long conversation with, and he had a channel dedicated to making fun of me and making fun of Wings of Redemption and making fun of a bunch of those people, and he was getting some real success with it. He was getting as many views on his videos as I was mine. And I talked to him for about 3.5, 4 hours last night, and we talked a lot about a lot of the hate that I get. And in the end, he decided to get rid of his channel, which I thought was really great of him. Now, I'm not going to out him because I'm afraid the troll community is going to go after him or something, and I don't want that to happen to him. But he actually sent me a really nice message on Discord this morning, and I'm going to read it to you. And I thought this was really interesting. He said, "God damn it, dude. I'm so fucking sorry, man. I wish I would have spoken with you sooner. I'm so glad I didn't continue with the YouTube shit. It was so selfish and wrong of me to do that. Jesus Christ, I didn't know you went through so much." And it kind of went to show me that there's a lot of people out there who have a very negative impression of me. And I feel like if people actually took the time to get to know me, took the time to hear the truth, took the time to but most people don't want to. Most people don't want to. Who said that? It was a content creator who made anti-Boogie videos, which is a very popular thing on YouTube right now. And I think a lot of it is misguided. I think a lot of it is based on misinformation. And that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, you know? So, I don't know.
Now, obviously I can't say for sure, I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about FPS Butter Golem. Mainly because the time frame more or less matches. FPS is the only person I can see as having removed content recently, and also FPS admitted himself several times in livestream that he'd been in contact privately with Boogie for several weeks. Boogie weirdly claims that they were a channel as big as him and getting as many views as him, which is just blatantly not true. There are no anti-Boogie channels as big as him, because no one really talks about him like I've said numerous times before. So, after this nearly 4-hour-long conversation, Boogie claims that this guy suddenly, out of their own free will, deleted all of their content and quit YouTube. It's kind of weird. Especially because last month Boogie did basically the same thing with the guy called Pete Paul Riveter, where the man was critical about Boogie about the whole t-shirt scam thing. Boogie then got on a phone call with him, and Pete Paul said apparently he trauma dumped so hard that he felt bad and took down his critical video of Boogie. Boogie, however, apparently at that time had told people to keep making videos on him and wanted him to use his name for success, which of course is a blatant manipulation tactic, but weirdly he was thankful that this anti-Boogie channel had taken down their video and wasn't going to talk about him anymore. So, 2 in 2 months. 2 months in a row, Boogie has been in contact with someone who is apparently a detractor, spent hours on the phone with them, apparently trauma dumped to get them to stop talking about him, and you guys keep asking me why I wouldn't want to speak with Boogie. Boogie claims that he only did this because he is such a kind person, he cares about these people, and he wanted them to better themselves by not making fun of him. Apparently that's his bar for bettering yourself, is to not mock him. Now, when FPS's channel was suddenly nuked in the middle of last month, I honestly suspected something like this was coming. For anyone who hasn't attended my last stream of the month, I specifically mentioned this incident to see what kind of reaction I got. FPS shortly afterwards uploaded a video to his channel advising people he had quit because he hated his content, thought it was done to talk about strangers online, but also randomly saying that there are other channels that do better than him. So if you're like upset about like bullying Boogie and you feel bad for picking on him, it's weird that you would say that there are other channels who do it 10 times better. So let's look at the facts. A channel that was about to be monetized, where FPS was very excited to be about to earn money from YouTube, suddenly after a personal phone call from Boogie decided to totally delete all of his content, apparently out of feeling sorry for Boogie, but also deleted his content on Wings of Redemption and his live streams which weren't about Boogie. I guess there are a few possibilities. Possibility 1. FPS, immediately before becoming monetized, suddenly decided he hated YouTube and quit, deleting his full channel history. It's a bit of an odd, sudden change, but it is possible. Option 2. Boogie trauma dumped so incredibly hard in FPS that he felt trolls remorse and caused him to nuke his entire channel. Option 3. FPS overshared personal information with Boogie and Boogie threatened him to stop him talking about him. Look, I'm sure there's other possibilities, but those are the 3 most likely ones in my head. The first one probably being the least likely, especially with Boogie's history of contacting people to either trauma dump or suicide bait in hopes that they will stop talking about him, even like we saw earlier this month with his video to Sunny V2. Similar as well to the Christopher Tom situation, where shortly after Christopher Tom's documentary on Boogie was released, an account many believed to be a sock puppet run by Boogie suddenly tried getting personal information on Christopher Tom. But like I said guys, we'll probably never know the real reason for him suddenly nuking his account, especially if it's option 2 or 3, he'll never come forward with information if it's either of those options, so we can all just have our speculation. I think everyone knows what my opinion is on the matter. I'm sure you guys all have your opinions based on the information that is floating around out there. But because of that, I want to give this piece of advice, and it's a piece of advice I've given several times before. Don't talk to Boogie, especially not in private. I know the temptation's there, especially if you're like a young upstart on YouTube and you think he'll be your foot in the door and you'll get an amazing interview with him that'll launch you to the heights of Christopher Tom and you'll have a huge documentary expose on Boogie and he won't. Don't talk to him. It's not worth it. Boogie is a relatively skilled manipulator, and he's very clearly shown he's prepared to say and do pretty much anything to get people to leave him alone, from faking swattings to threatening to end himself to threatening to kill people like Frank Castle. So just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's why when my chat repeatedly asked me, would you do an interview with Boogie? Would you sit down and talk to Boogie? What would you guys... I wouldn't. I wouldn't, and Boogie's very, very much aware of that. Hence, why I got blocked, and FPS Butter Golem didn't get blocked. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. We'll see how December goes to see if I even make a monthly recap for it. If it stays this boring, I might not. I might instead do a year in review thing, outlining maybe my favourite thing of each month. Something like that. That was something someone suggested to me, so we'll see. I of course want to thank my Patreons for supporting my whiskey addiction, especially during this boring drought of content. Eswank, Haley, Samuel P, I'm just saying, absolutely massive. Thank you so much for the support, guys. And hope you guys like it. That's the video. Take care of yourselves now. Bye-bye.